Hello, Christopher Hunt here again. Musings of a Mariner, sojourning in the land of woke. I just finished 7 hours of offloading the boat with drill pipe at the drill ship Asgard, Deepwater Asgard. And right now I'm about to prep up some food. Last night I made some beans. I was trying to do the whole thing, but I wasn't able to, so I made some beans. I'm going to refry them tonight. And I'm making a green hot sauce right now. Like for instance here, you could go ahead and see some of what I'm doing right here. You know, I got some nice little hot sauce getting ready to be made there, and I'm gonna make a nice Mexican dish tomorrow. Gonna make some this one dish with jalapenos, corn, and onions, and cream. Very good. And the refried beans, I'm gonna put some meat in them, refry them in bacon grease, and put the bacon in them. But okay, so here I am. I'm about 40 pages into After the Ball, and I'll say this book here is really it's been a lot more thought-provoking so far than the last couple of books I read. The last couple of books I was able to see a lot of parallels, albeit somewhat shallow parallels, you know, with immigration and oppression today, but it was parallels, but it wasn't really very thought-provoking. Whereas now, as I'm reading this book, which it calls itself the Manifesto for the Gay Agenda, written in 1989, meant to be successful throughout the 90s, and they talk about getting LGBTQ into the education system, which is now happening pretty full on in some states. In Orange County, California, where I grew up, they just sent out a letter to everybody, the Board of Education there, that the parents do not have the option to opt their children out of the gender identity, LGBTQ indoctrination. It's not even a choice for parents to opt out. You know, so you know, whenever we're talking about what's going on here, like this whole agenda thing is very, very real. Now, in the book, they address homophobia and homo hatred. And they list homophobia as, or they talk about homophobia as a kind of like a mental illness, like arachnophobia, and they say, well, that's something that is not the norm. The norm is homo hatred, and to an extent, I understand where they're coming from in that sense. But then they lop a lot of people into that, which is very untrue and unreal. And there's a lot of things where they speak about things like what the Catholic Church teaches and what people believe, and they'll use some of the official phraseology, and they'll add some truth to it, but then they'll completely twist what's being said or being taught. You know, I'll definitely talk more about that. I'm kind of tired. You know, I've been busting my butt out there on the back deck. Anyways, right now I'm getting to the point where they're going over where, like, the myths of what people believe cause homosexuality. And one of the things that I've found really interesting was that when they start talking about masturbation leading to homosexuality and how pretty much how asinine it is, they put a side note that both of the authors of this book believe that many people who are homosexual become homosexual through such things as masturbation, which was really interesting. At first they're kind of like laughing at it, and then they say, but both of us kind of believe, yeah, it is kind of real, that does actually happen. I found that telling. Now, I believe that a lot of homosexuality actually occurs due to sexual addiction. You see, whenever you start looking at pornography, masturbating, being very promiscuous, sleeping around, having sex casually, just for pleasure, just for this and that, then we get to the point of where feelings that are good, love that is good, starts to become sexualized and twisted. So for instance, okay, somebody might be very addicted to pornography and very addicted to sex, very addicted to masturbation, and as it becomes more of an obsessive kind of thing, which for some people it really does, that sometimes that will cause you to sexualize your feelings, your good feelings, for friends and for other loved ones. So have a true brotherly love to your best friend, and due to your sexual addiction, that good, beautiful brotherly love gets twisted and sexualized. Now, I first heard that idea from Father Emmerich Vogt, OP, and he's a great priest, a very good priest. He used to do retreats for Mother Angelica and her nuns, and also for Mother Teresa of Calcutta and her nuns. Very good priest, and he has a series. He has a series on the 12 steps. It's an audio series. It's excellent, absolutely excellent, and he actually is friends with and knows like the founders of Sexaholics Anonymous, which is really something that's worth talking about while I'm reading this book. And when we're talking about addiction, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, which were created by Dr. Bob and Bill Wilson, those things in my younger years really helped to form me in who I am today. And for anybody that might be suffering from other addictions, such as drugs or alcohol, there is some great 12-step groups out there. I know of a couple that I used to go to when I was younger. When I was 18, I had joined this group down in Southern California called Dog on the Roof. That's in Orange County. And they're a fantastic group of guys. It's a men's group, but they have an Al-Anon group attached to it, which is a female Al-Anon group. Al-Anon being a 12-step program for loved ones that are affected by people with addictions. And then up in the Vancouver, Washington, Portland, Oregon area, another great Alcoholics Anonymous group that I used to go to many years ago is called Last Chance in Vancouver, Washington. And those two groups, if you are struggling with alcoholism or addiction, I strongly urge you, if you're in those areas, to check out those groups. And if you're not in those areas, maybe find something else. But those two groups are very real, very helpful, and no nonsense. But I think that anybody that's struggling with any kind of sin should really, check out the 12 steps on that. There's even a great book, a great Ignatian book, where it goes through the spirituality of Saint Ignatius in the 12 steps. I have the book. I haven't gone through it. My little brother John, he went through that and really liked it and highly recommended it to me. And I'm going to check it out. Now, me, I don't go to any kind of 12-step thing anymore. I seem to not really have an issue with drinking since I've gotten older. It doesn't really bother me too much. I don't drink too much. I don't overdrink. But that's one thing that was pretty interesting. So if you do struggle with addiction, you struggle with sexual addiction, there's Sexaholics Anonymous. If you struggle with any other kind of addictions, there's also other groups out there, and I strongly urge you to get help. This book is really, like I said, really thought-provoking, and that it's been making me think a lot. While I was rigging out there for this 7 hours, I had a lot of time to think this over and kind of contemplate what I had read, and one of the things that I find really troubling about the book, but I mean it makes sense. It's not troubling, so I mean I could have guessed it. Is that you see there's many of us who have a deep love of people, period, and we only want the greatest good for our fellow humans. And I am opposed to sin and homosexuality. The feelings are not sinful. Now, lusting is sinful. Committing sex acts that are not natural, that are disordered, are sinful. And so let's look at that a little bit. What is right-ordered sex? Right-ordered sexuality? Well, sex is rightly ordered to what? Sex is rightly ordered to procreation. So, if there's a sex act that is intrinsically cut off from procreation, then that sex act is disordered. So, things like oral sex, anal sex, sex with the use of artificial contraception, these are all disordered. They're disordered sex acts. So when we talk about sex acts being disordered and homosexual acts being disordered, the reason they're disordered is because they are not ordered to the fulfillment of the right order of sex, which is procreation. Now, obviously, other things come into focus when you're talking about sex. There's love, there's intimacy, there's communication and connection. But the prime purpose of sex and the right order of sex is for procreation. So, masturbation, homosexual acts, oral sex, sex with the use of artificial contraception, these are all fundamentally, intrinsically disordered use of the great, beautiful, wonderful gift that God gave us, which is sex. Now, like I said, I'm still in chapter 1 of this book, and there's so many things that I want to talk about just from this little bit that I've read. Now, getting back to the fact of love, I would say I'm definitely not a homo hater. I would say I'm a homo lover, and I say that in all sincerity and all reality. I want all of my fellow human beings to be saved, to go to heaven. I'm going to tell you a story. Back when I used to run a Bible study, there was a little Catholic Bible study. We went to go pray rosaries in front of an abortion clinic in Portland, Oregon, and as we were there was this one lady that showed up. She was just a college-age chick, probably in her young 20s, and she was probably doing something for school. She was going there to interview the abortion doctor, and after she came out, she came over to attack and interview us, and she was kind of aggressive, and she's like, well, why do you hate these people? Why why? And I was like, we're all about love. We're here for love. We're here because we're praying for the women that are going in there, and having abortion. We're praying for the babies that they might be saved. We're praying for those people that are coercing those women to have abortions if they're being coerced. We pray for the nurses and the doctors, because we want to see all of these people in heaven when we die. When we die, we want all of these people who are in this abortion clinic to be in heaven with us. So we're here and we're praying for their souls, we're praying for their forgiveness, we're praying for their conversion. Well, that's the same way that it is when it comes to people that are practicing homosexuality in my life, you know. So that's the way I see it, that's the way I portray it. Now, my mother was a lesbian, and whenever she came out, I continue to have a wonderful relationship with her, and I was also very good friends with her partner. But whenever they came out, and I told them, you know what, I love you both. Mama, you're my mom, and I love you. I'm always going to be your son. I said, Loretta, you're my friend. I love you. You're great. But I'm not going to tell you that what you're doing is okay, and I'm not going to accept your relationship as being all right. I'm still going to be your friend. I'm still going to be your son, and I love you both. At that point, Loretta decided to really dislike me. But you know, that's just life, you know. But I continue to pray for them, and I continue to have a great relationship with my mother. The only time we would ever talk about it is when she would bring it up. I didn't bring it up, but I was always honest, and I told her, you know, Mama, you taught me, and you taught me right, you taught me correctly, and as I've grown up, I saw that what you taught me was correct, and now the way you're living is contrary to what you taught me, and the way you're living is contrary to the will of God. And if you continue living this way, you will live this way all the way into the pit of hell, and I don't want you to go there. I love you, and I would let her know this, you know, and like I said, I wouldn't bring it up to her. She would bring it up to me. And so after some years went by, about 8 to 10 years went by, and my mom, she came down with cancer, and it was terminal. It got caught at stage 3C. It had already metastasized. And at that point, I moved back to where she was at and got there to help take care of her. And during that time, my mom began to practice her Catholic faith again. She started going to church again. And over and over and over, my mother thanked me for not caving in and being just super nice and saying, oh yeah, I love it, yeah, you guys keep on doing what you're doing. You know, I didn't do that. I was very kind. You see, it would have been very cruel and perhaps damning for me to tell my mom that what she was doing was okay, because it was not okay. It wasn't okay, you know. And I always spoke to her lovingly about it, but honestly about it. And she thanked me many times over the last couple of years of her life. And her death became a beautiful death. When she died, she had had the last rites that day, that morning. And during that day, everybody in her room had a prayer vigil going. We were praying the rosary, we were praying the Chaplet of Divine Mercy. And as she started to take her last breaths, I was holding one of her hands. Well, no, I'm gonna rewind. A few hours before that, she had been completely comatose. She was at the point of what the doctor told me was called the death rattle, which meant that she would be dead within 24 hours. And I was sitting there holding my mom's hand, and my friend Marie was holding my mom's other hand. And I told my mom, I said, hey Mama, Marie and I are here, and we're going to say a prayer with you, Mama. I want to say a prayer with you. And I said, Mama, just say it in your head. You don't got to say it out loud. Just say it in your head. Say it silently. And at this point, my mom, for hours, hadn't even reacted to anything. The only thing that was going on is we were taking a sponge and wetting her mouth so that her mouth wouldn't be so dry. But she was doing the death rattle. She was completely comatose for hours. And I was telling her, Mama, just in your mind, say it in your mind, and we're gonna pray with you. I said, let's pray a Hail Mary. We're gonna pray a Hail Mary with you, Mama, but you don't have to say it out loud. My mom sat up, and the very last words that she ever spoke was, Hail Mary, full of grace. She laid back down. A couple hours later, my mom took at first I thought was her last breath, and I was holding her hand and praying the rosary silently. And at that point, I started saying the Chaplet of Divine Mercy out loud, and everybody in that room prayed the Chaplet of Divine Mercy for my mom as she died. And another beautiful thing was holding her other hand at that time when my mom died was my stepmom, Dawn, who for her whole life didn't really care for my mom. And so it was this great act of beautiful forgiveness and letting go. And my mom died, and I believe that she is now in heaven. I believe that she has finished her purgatory, but I don't know that. So I ask you all to please pray for my mother. Pray for her soul. But that's my most deepest personal experience with homosexuality right there. My mother. Now, beyond that, I've had and have gay and lesbian friends. For about a year, I had roommates which were lesbian, and I got along great with them. They knew what I believed. Sometimes they would ask me about it. Sometimes we would talk about it. I was always loving and kind to them. I just let them know, yes, I believe that it is a sin, and I believe it is something that could lead you to eternal damnation. And I really would like you to leave that lifestyle and start to live a life in the will of God. But I guess we'll continue this later. It's starting to get a little bit more rough in here, and I got to continue with my cooking. And I need to read some more of the book so we can discuss it more. But you all have a wonderful day, and thank you for listening to these musings of a mariner sojourning in the land of woke. If you think that I'm wrong, my thinking is off, anything, you think there's something wrong, go ahead and send me a book and make me woke. Don't insult me, don't attack me, enlighten me. I'm going to leave my address in the description, and I'm also going to leave a link to Father Emmerich Vogt's 12-step talks. If I could find them, if they're still available online, I'm going to leave that link in there. So go ahead and check that out. God bless you all, and thank you for listening. Bye.